Customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you are a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast with John DiJulius. In today's episode, the DiJulius Group's Chief Revolution Officer, John DiJulius, and Senior Customer Experience Consultant, Dave Murray, talk about the legacy of Tony Hsieh, the man who built Zappos into a customer experience powerhouse. Today, you'll find out how Tony Hsieh, CEO of Zappos, took an unthinkable business model and turned it into a billion-dollar business. How Zappos produced higher sales by focusing less on marketing and advertising and more on customer service and the customer experience. How Zappos offers their employees a quitting bonus to filter out the people who are not truly bought into their culture. How Zappos had to offer free shipping and free returns just to get people to give them a try. And how they don't track conventional call center metrics like average call times. Instead, they measure if their reps made a personal, emotional connection during the call. Curious how they're doing with that? Well, stick around and hear what happened when we called Zappos and asked their call center rep what the weather was in a different part of the country. Now here are your hosts, John DiJulius and Dave Murray.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast. This is episode 34, and my name is Dave Murray. I'm the senior consultant with the DiJulius Group, and I'm joined today by our Customer Service Revolution Officer, John DiJulius. John, it's great to see you again. Today's a big show because today we are going to focus on a tribute to Tony Hsieh's legacy and all that he has done for customer experience.
It's great to be with you, Dave. And yes, it's a lot of mixed emotions about today. Tony Hsieh, the pioneer of Zappos online, we tragically lost him. The world lost him last November 2020 in a tragic accident. And that really caused such a ripple effect. And as someone like you who've studied customer experience pioneers, it was like losing someone in the customer experience family. He has just done so much, not only in revolutionizing online e-commerce, but something that every business in any industry can learn and utilize to raise their level of customer experience.
Yeah, so many great teachings, and as you mentioned, he pioneered a lot of customer experience concepts that are commonplace today. But back when he started doing them at Zappos, people were, looking at him funny because they were so foreign back then. And now most organizations try and emulate him. It's really amazing what he was able to accomplish.
And you want to talk about someone who's, isn't giving the customer what they're asking for, but giving something they can't live without. Dave, even with the 2020 hindsight of 15 years later, I still think if you were to bring me the idea today about selling shoes online, I tell you, you're crazy. Like, it just sounds so absurd. I know when I've gone to buy shoes, I am a different size, 3 different sizes and 3 different brands. Like, who's going to do that online? But by now you've probably heard the countless legendary stories about a company that started out of a living room. Zappos' original goal was to get people to buy shoes online, and it succeeded. 10 years after it started, Zappos was bought by Amazon for $1 billion. All this was done during one of the worst economic recessions in our lifetimes, right? 2008, 2009. Zappos' business was built using world-class customer service. Again, not just relative to e-commerce, but world-class service by anyone's standards.
And, John, you talked about this, how they took something that no one was used to, and that was selling shoes online, right? I mean, we're from a time where we went to the store, we tried shoes on, we try a couple of pairs and then walk out with the one that fit the best. And they were changing that, right? They were asking you to order online, never hold them, never touch them until they came to you. And as you mentioned, because of unpredictable and inconsistent sizes and different types of shoes and brands, but they did it, right? They did it, built that trust. They pioneered things like free shipping and free returns before anyone was doing it, right? They were definitely one of the first, and a lot of organizations still don't do that today because of the cost. But that's a place they went, and they really developed a cult-like following within their own brand, their team members, their 1,300 team members that are referred to as Zapponians, which I think is great. They're not paid anymore than someone in a similar position in the same or different industries. They just really buy in and love what they do and completely understand the mission. And that's how they built that organization. It was literally built on the concept of deliver wow through service. And it worked. It worked tremendously well.
Yeah, it is so true. I read, I believe in Tony Hsieh's book, Delivering Happiness, that they were in Vegas. I'm sorry, they were in San Francisco. They started off in San Francisco, and this is an approximation, but they had 1,200 employees. And they decided that it was best for them to move to Vegas, their headquarters. And something like 800 or 900 of those employees relocated to Vegas. And not only is that shocking, but these weren't all high executive positions. These were warehouse, these were call center reps. The average pay for these 800 employees was something like $32,000, right? And for them, to just get up and uproot themselves, everything they're comfortable with, circle of friends, where they grew up, you name it, really says so much about their company culture.
Yeah, it does. And, and Tony took it a step further when they did relocate to Vegas, and he's credited with the revitalization of the downtown Las Vegas business district. Everyone knows the Strip, right? And the Strip does really, really well. But he took some neighborhoods and revitalized, rebuilt, and did it with the Zappos team and made a huge impact on the Las Vegas community and the Las Vegas economy outside of the Strip.
And Dave, I don't think it could be stated enough of the business model, which today we're all well entrenched in ordering online. But back then, be it shoes, be it clothing, all the things they've got into, how they had to do something that no one else was willing to do. And as you said, it offered free shipping and free returns, which basically did make it zero risk. And a lot of people, including me, I would order 5 shoes and sometimes, 3 of the same shoe at 3 different sizes, just so I got mine, and I'd send the other 2 back that didn't fit. But because I had that confidence, because I didn't have to worry about, paying the shipping back or what if, and how do I get a hold of someone, it got me to be a customer that I then just started defaulting to whenever I needed anything that Zappos provided.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about that concept, John, is they actually encouraged that, right? They wanted you, they would tell you to buy these 3 pair and find the one that works best and send the other 2 back. And when you think about that idea, that concept, most organizations, I'm sure, would see that as a huge expense, an expense they didn't want to undertake. They would probably have their team members try and get that customer focused on the 1 pair and hope for the best to cut expenses. But Zappos really saw that as an acquisition cost, right? We're willing to pay this because we know it's going to pay off.
And let's hear our first clip from Tony Hsieh. And if you've ever had the pleasure of seeing, watching, hearing Tony, he was a man of very few words. He was by nature very shy, and I think admittedly, wasn't comfortable with people, but he was very concise. What he said was just spoke volumes. Here's Tony Hsieh.
Most people, when they hear about Zappos, think of us as an online retailer of shoes because that's how we started. But internally, we actually have a different philosophy and a different saying. We actually have a saying that we're a service company that just happens to sell shoes. And we're hoping 10 years from now, people won't even realize we started out selling shoes online. And actually today we sell a lot more than shoes. We sell clothing and beauty products, handbags, housewares, kitchenware. And really our goal is just to build the Zappos brand to be about the very best customer service and customer experience.
Yeah. See, a lot of people talk that, but I don't know if he ever lived it. Like he got the Zapponians too.
Well, the other thing that I find so interesting about that philosophy, and again, he was pioneering as he went, right, as he was developing this. So many organizations still to this day are focused on marketing and advertising. That's their main focus. And it's all about getting new customers, and very little time or energy is spent on, okay, we have the customers here now. What do we do with them? How do we keep them happy? And he's really saying there, they focused on the experience once they had engagement with that customer. So it was all about customer retention at a time when many organizations were just focused on churning and getting as many new customers in as possible.
And Dave, I remember, and still today, like this is embarrassing that this was so novel. Today, let alone 15 years ago, it is very hard to find a company's phone number, right? I mean, they bury it, if at all you can find it. And there's some websites you can't find it. The thing that first just struck me as revolutionary, and I guess this is sad to say, but as soon as Zappos came out, you couldn't scroll up or down and not see their 1-800 number. Which was they made it so easy, and which again went towards trust, that this must be a brand that you want to do business with because they're not hiding from you at all. Other things they did, and it was out of necessity, but they always answered by a human being. They offered a personal buying, representative, free socks. They also would tell you you'd get it in 2 to 3 days, and a lot of times that it'd be at your doorstep the next day. Which, I mean, talk about under promise and literally over deliver. The unique thing was that, during the early days, they were struggling and they had to cut expenses and virtually eliminate their marketing, which forced them to become more dedicated to customer experience, which eventually changed the way they did business. Let's listen to how Tony describes this paradigm shift.
Our whole philosophy is let's take most of the money that we would have spent on paid advertising or paid marketing and rather spend it on that, invest it into customer service and the customer experience, and then let our customers do the marketing for us through word of mouth. That's
exactly what they did. They don't spend money on the advertising. They spend it on the customer experience, which gets them more repeat and new customers than any advertising could.
And I feel like he, again, was on the front end of the paradigm shift that we talk about in our zero risk sessions, John, when we're working with our client base, when we talk about how the old paradigm was that marketing was offense and then customer service was the defense, right? Customer service was there when something went wrong and they were there to fix it, try and make you happy. But Tony Hsieh was out front saying, no, customer service, our CS team is our offense. It's helping us with lead generation, with referrals, all these things. And you bring up a great point, John, when you talked about just a minute ago, how hard it is sometimes to find organization phone numbers on their website. And one of the things that Zappos did, which I think some organizations still have a hard time understanding to this day, was Tony realized that the website wasn't a replacement of his CS team. It was a way to work with his CS team. A lot of organizations see the website as here's all the information. It's much cheaper to operate than having people answer a phone. Just use this. And that's why they bury those phone numbers. But he knew that they supplemented each other and worked well together as opposed to being a replacement of the other. And I think that's what made them so strong so quickly.
Yeah. And it goes so much further. they have thousands of employees from warehouse to customer service reps. And as you know, to get them to really act on this, delivering wow, through every touch point is just something amazing that they were able to do. And so many of us experts could use them as great material. I mean, years ago, people would get sick of all the speakers using Disney and Southwest examples. And it's kind of gotten that way with Zappos, right? But it's so true. Like there is just an endless amount of best practices that Zappos does externally and internally. Let's talk a little bit about, the training they give their employees.
Yeah. So, a couple of things that they have done is, and this is what I find so amazing, because when they talk about the fact that every call is a branding opportunity, right? Every time you're talking on the phone, it's an opportunity to deliver that wow. The interesting thing is that's real easy to say at the top, right? That's real easy to say in the C-suite, in the executive boardroom. It's another thing for your frontline customer service facing reps to buy into that. And that's what they did so well. And I know in the next clip we're going to play here, it talks about one of the reasons why they believe it comes down to their culture. And that was always their primary focus, as Tony's going to tell us here in just a minute in his clip. It wasn't always being fantastic at service. That they knew that was an important derivative, but that the culture really set the tone for that.
But for all the focus on that, and even though we want to build our brand around that, the number one priority of the company is actually not customer service. Our number one priority is company culture. And our whole belief is that if we get the culture right, most of the other stuff like delivering great customer service or building a long-term enduring brand or business, that'll just be a natural byproduct of that. But then our HR department does a separate set of interviews purely for culture fit. And they have to pass both in order to be hired. So we've passed on a lot of really smart, talented people that we know can make an immediate impact on our top or bottom line. But if they're bad for our culture, if they're not a fit for our culture, we won't hire them. It's not even a question. And the reverse is true too. Even if someone is doing their specific job function perfectly fine, even if they're a superstar in that job function, if they're bad for the culture, we'll fire them just for that reason alone. And our performance reviews are 50% based on whether you're living or inspiring the Zappos culture and others.
Yeah. I mean, they live it. I mean, they do 4 weeks of training for every new employee to understand the company's strategy, culture, obsession. And people get paid full salary during this period. And I love this. This is one of my favorite things. They train every rep to research at least 3 competitors' websites. Why? Because if the shoes that the customer's asking for are out of stock, they can direct them to their competitor's website. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Again, we talked about how Tony was such a pioneer and ahead of his time. Think about the fact that he's talking there about saying no to some really quality candidates just based on the fact that they weren't a culture fit, right? How many organizations would do that? How many organizations would take a pass on who appears to be on paper the best candidate because they don't think they're going to be a great fit for the culture they have? And that's a different way of thinking, right? That's putting a lot of value in the team that you already have in place, making sure that someone's not going to come in and rock that boat. And I think that takes a lot of guts. But by focusing your efforts there, I think it pays huge dividends. And obviously, Zappos is a prime example.
Well, and Dave, to your point, we've talked about this numerous times. Nothing will ruin a company's customer experience and rapid growth. And you want to talk about, Zappos has and continues to grow rapidly, where, it's not like they need 10 employees, they need thousands. And to be this stringent to make sure they're not just taking anyone, but someone who fits their culture. And then let's really talk about probably the most remarkable thing of all the things Zappos has ever done. And there are a lot of great ones. I think this is probably what caught more attention and was brilliant is we talk about the 4-week training that every new employee goes through. And mid through the training, they're new, 2 weeks into it. Okay. And I always say, if you have a good training program, the new employee should be more bought in, right? The most bought in because he or she's hearing about how great this company is and how, Dave Murray went from sweeping floors to being vice president of, and oh my God, I could do that. And, all the things you do for customers in the community. So if you have a great orientation training program, you really get people, at their highest bought in. And then so they come in and they offer what has moved. But, it started off as a $2,000 quitting bonus, $3,000 quitting bonus. I'm not sure if it's gone up, but it's approximately a $3,000 quitting bonus that you will get paid for your 2 weeks of training you've already gone through. But if you want to leave right now, we will give you an additional $3,000. And they say, like, I don't know, a small percentage, take that. And that was just mind-blowing. It's still mind-blowing to me, even though I've been familiar with the story for over 10 years. But as you know, the only thing worse than someone, quitting and leaving is someone quitting and staying. And if you hear our message, hear what we're made up of, and you're willing to take a payout, not to be part of that, that was the best investment of that $3,000, someone could make. It was mind blowing when it came out.
Yeah, it really was. But when you think of the logic behind it, right? That 3,000 is a drop in the bucket if that person is not bought in for some reason and sticks around for 6 months or a year or 2 years, somehow flies under the radar, not being part of that culture, how much damage they could do to the internal culture, to customer relationships. And so, it really is, it's an investment back into their culture. It's ensuring that their culture remains a top priority, but also it's a cost savings as well, right? Because again, it's helping new potential team members weed themselves out. And if they're willing to exchange, if they're not bought in and willing to take the quick cash, then obviously they're not the right fit. So it's definitely an investment in the culture of the organization.
Would you like to learn more in-depth ways to create a world-class service organization? Contact Claudia at DiJuliusGroup.com to find out about our Customer Experience Executive Academy classes that are enrolling now.
Let's go into clip number 4 of Tony Hsieh talking about the difference between motivation and inspiration. I really love this.
But what we found at Zappos is there's a huge, huge difference between motivation and inspiration. And if you can inspire your employees through a vision that has a higher purpose beyond just money or profits or being number one in the market, and if you can inspire your employees through having core values, corporate core values, not just stated values, but actually practice values that match their own personal values, then you can accomplish so much more. And you don't really need to worry about the motivation part of it. It just kind of takes care of itself.
I love that. And it just goes back to their constantly leading by culture and the purpose.
And I love how he ends that clip with inspiration will take care of motivation, because John, you and I both know firsthand a lot of organizations or departments within organizations struggle with motivation. How do we keep our team members bought in, motivated, focusing on the right things during tough times, all those things. And again, the simple answer is you're probably not doing a great job of inspiring to get them there. So some really helpful words.
And a lot of this, he really sums up well in his book, Delivering Happiness, which I highly recommend, A Path to Profits, Passion and Purpose by Tony Hsieh. And, there was just so many golden nuggets. Some things he said that really resonated with me. Chasing money produces little passion. Chasing your passion will produce a lot of money. That's simple. It's kind of like, no crap, but we all get caught up in the other way around. And something else he said in his book was, envision, create, and believe in your own universe, and that universe will form around you. And that's what he's done. I mean, that's why they have Zapponians.
Right. Yeah. The passion is so important. And, people sometimes argue that point and say, well, money's important. We got to make sure we're taking care of ourselves. But people, and Tony Hsieh is one of them, have proved time and time again that passion can get you there, right? If you're following your passion, it will take care of the other things, just like inspiration will take care of motivation. It's very similar.
Let's listen to this next clip, which I know resonates very well with you, Dave, with all your expertise in contact centers and how he really looked at his phone as a completely different tool than nearly every other company ever has.
We view our call center as a branding opportunity. Every phone call is a branding opportunity.
I mean, that's quick, but every phone call is a branding opportunity.
I was going to say, we talked about this a little bit already. It's one thing for the C-suite to talk about that. It's one thing for Tony Hsieh to say it. It's another thing for everyone on their floor to understand it and live it. And that's what they do so well, right? Their team members understand that. And one of the things that they did to help get there, which again was pioneering in the industry, especially within call centers, and there's a lot of call centers that still aren't bought into this theory, is they really took a look at what metrics are they focusing on in their call centers, because they knew that if they measured the wrong metrics, it could damage the customer experience. And there's a lot of metrics out there that might be considered a little old school by some in the call center world that do just that damage your customer's experience. And one of the biggest ones, and again, this was really eye-opening for a lot of people, they didn't care about average talk time. Average talk time is the metric in call centers that tells managers how long their representatives are having a dialogue, having a phone conversation with each customer. And Zappos literally threw that one out the window. They said, we don't care how long you're talking to customers. We just want you to be talking to customers. And I can tell you that here we are sitting in 2021, there are still a lot of call centers out there that focus on average talk time. What average talk time does is it gets your representatives thinking about things like, I got to get off this call, or I got to get this guy to move to his point so I can go on because I'm going to get in trouble, as opposed to focus on building a relationship, or as Tony just said, being the brand, right? Living the brand, bringing the brand to life. So that's one that they really revolutionized in the industry, and they got rid of average talk time as one of those metrics that can really hurt your customer's experience. And they have some legendary call times, right? They have a call that lasted for over 5 hours, and that was recently topped by one that lasted 9 hours, right? Just being there for the customer. They don't even necessarily care about if it results in a sale. They just want to build that relationship and be there for their customer. And so
Dave, you got leaders freaking out right now saying, I can't have my people on the phone, for even 20 minutes. And if they didn't make a sale, you're killing me here.
Oh, I get it. I still talk to a lot of call center leaders that say, we need to keep our folks on the phone for 5 minutes or less. But what can they accomplish in that time, right? So it's just a different way of looking at it. And, quite honestly, if you need your reps to be on the phone for less than 5 minutes with a customer and not have a chance to build rapport, you're probably not staffed right? It's probably a staffing issue, not a training issue, right? Let your folks build those relationships, share the knowledge, advocate for your customers, and they need the time to do that. So there's a couple of things, and maybe this is where you start, right, John? So if you're one of those call center leaders on the listening to this podcast right now saying this sounds impossible, here's a place you can start, right? So one of the things, or a couple of things that they used as metrics to make sure they were living up to making sure that their team members were being the brand and delivering the brand, is they had a couple of metrics in place. Did their team member try and make a personal and emotional connection twice during the call, right? So they try it once, maybe the person's in a rush, maybe they're not buying in, maybe they're not paying attention. They try it twice every call. Did they keep going after that when the customer responded, right? Did they keep trying to engage and trying to build that rapport, going down those paths? Were they able to identify and address unstated needs, right? Kind of that question behind the question, as opposed to just being a robotic answering the questions. And then did they provide a wow experience? And so those are the four things that they want their team members to be focused on every single call. Now, if you are a call center leader, think back to what your team members are focused on right now. It's probably quite a different list, but this is what Zappos has built their brand on over the years and has been very, very successful.
Yeah. And to your point, they just don't track this. They hold them accountable. And if a rep scores below, the score that they want them to, they receive extra training, while the top performers are rewarded in paid hours off and other incentives. So, everything they are doing here. And again, you might be a leader saying that's just not cost effective. Well, they sell over $1 billion in shoes. And to show you that this isn't just hyperbole and exaggerated, I want to talk about one of my favorite, I think it's your favorite things we've ever done. And we call it the Weather Report Challenge. And let me tell you the backstory to our listeners. I was doing a workshop for a contact center in Los Angeles and using Zappos as an example. And they were, kind of didn't believe, what the stories we were using, and that, there's no way. And I just did this totally out of the blue. And I unplugged the speakers that were into my laptop for my presentation and plugged it into my phone and called Zappos. And we recorded the call. And I know it's hard to believe, because when you hear this, you're like, no way, that was set up. That was because it's just an unbelievable call. So I call Zappos, who's headquartered in Vegas. I believe their reps are all in Vegas, at least at this time. And this is what happened in the call. It is mind-blowing.
Thank you for calling Zappos.com. This is Damon. How may I help you today?
Hi, Damon. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm great. Hey, Damon, I am going to San Francisco this weekend. I was just wondering if you knew what the weather was, so I knew how to pack.
So I don't know what the weather is, but we can definitely take a look and see their forecast. Let's take a look here.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see here. Weather this weekend. Is it for business or pleasure there?
It's a little bit of both.
There we go. At least you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting your work done, but you're also getting to sit back and relax, hopefully.
Exactly.
Well, let's see here. So it looks like today they will be about 73 degrees in the midday. Tuesday, they're looking to be about 73 degrees. Wednesday, they're looking to be about 72. Thursday, it looks like it's going to get cloudy because it's cloudy throughout Monday through Thursday. That's why it's a little on the kind of low side, but it's 68 degrees on Thursday there as their high. But Friday and Saturday, it looks like they're going to be 70 degrees. And then Sunday, it's going to be a big whooping 72. So you might, just in case, because it's so cloudy and stuff, and it's so low, you might want to bring like a raincoat just in case, you never know. But also kind of pack on the light side for some shorts there, because it looks like it's going to be a nice little breezy day throughout that weekend.
Damon, that was unbelievable. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Is there anything else I can do for you today?
No, but thanks for asking.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, with this here, it doesn't matter if it's Zappos related or not. You can just give us a call. We'll try to help you as best as we can. So, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that for you.
All right, buddy. You have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye. Dave, this is a guy that his job is to help you buy shoes and other projects. If he was actually paid, if he was hired and paid to give people the weather, I don't think he could have done a better job. Like
Right.
Everything about this was amazing. Like even when he was like looking up the weather, he made small talk with me. So there wasn't that, uncomfortable dead silence. Oh, are you going for work or are you going for pleasure? Like it's just, I lived this, in the moment, and it still sounds like it was a setup. Like it was my friend that I told to do this.
Well, the thing that's interesting about this, and we use that call, that was a call that you made, right? And other people have made that call and have recordings, and it's become a little bit of a legend that Zappos does this. But the thing that is, to me, so interesting about it is it becomes an eye-opening experience for a lot of organizations. So here's the thing. What would happen in your call center right now, right? Chances are the person's in most call centers, what are you calling me for? I sell shoes. But the interesting thing that we always push people on when we share that call in one of our sessions and we're exploring how to change your call center, how to change your culture, it's not even so much what the representative would do. It's what would the manager say, right? What would the manager say if they walked down that aisleway and heard him giving you the weather forecast and not talking about shoes once, right? Usually it's the manager's reaction that's the problem in most organizations, right? So that's why the buy-in, not only from the front line, but the managerial buy-in too, is so important that they understand that this is okay, right? This is building rapport. This is building a loyal customer that we're going to have for a long, long time. And so I think this is such an eye-opening thing that Zappos has done that has really helped to change culture in a lot of organizations, a lot of contact centers.
To your point, Dave, this is the ultimate service aptitude test. And as you know, when we have done this and played this, we've had people in our sessions saying, let's call our call center. And we do. And we put it on speakerphone and we call and ask that question. And every time that person, struggles and says, excuse me, we're in Southern California, or we're in, Nevada, I have no idea, or Colorado, I have no idea what the weather is in San Francisco. And, they're deflated. And I always say, listen, it is not Damon or Tina. Damon, who you just listened, do it for Zappos, and Tina, who maybe didn't do it for your company. It's not their fault. They were brought into a culture where you're from day one, that 4-week training, you're like, Murray, this is who we are. Someone wants to know what, hours of operation McDonald's is open till, or if Taco Bell delivers, or they're on it. Yeah, make it happen. I mean, it's a click of a button in today's world. So you just take care of it. So I never blame the employee. I blame the culture. And as you said, that comes by what we're doing in training and what we're rewarding. And, like you said, I guarantee you there might be one or two leaders listening to this podcast saying, I don't want my employees giving out the weather. And that says a lot, maybe not on I doubt they'd be listening to our podcast, but if they had that mentality, but to me, that's the ultimate survey. And so we have a good example. One of our clients, Anytime Fitness, did it to our sister company, John Roberts Spa, because just to test us out. And so they called up and they recorded it and played it. And they called up our call center and they said, hey, can I get my hair done? And they settle on a Friday night, a few weeks ahead in the summer. And all of a sudden the person calling up says, oh, wait, I have season tickets. Me and my husband have season tickets to the Indians game. I don't know if they're in town that Friday night. And fortunately, our call center rep, Sammy, she was all over it. She says, well, let's hold on. Let me see. And pulls up the Indian schedule and makes small talk and says, that's Friday nights are great because they always have fireworks. And she finds out if they're home or they're not. And gives the answer and books the appointment. But, most people would have probably responded and saying, oh, I don't know if they're playing. If you want to give me a call back after you check,
Right.
and that's just, that took her 30 seconds and saved a sale. So I always say that if you want to know your level of service aptitude, see if you can get the weather report, from your call center.
Yeah, it's when they do something like that, like what Sam did when she checked to see if the Indians were home or away, and they happened to be away that Friday, so she did book for that Friday night in that example, or give the weather. You've really turned the corner where you have a team that is advocating for your customer, not just trying to transact with your customer and get to the next call. And that's pivotal for a lot of organizations. That's where you make sure that you are retaining your customers. That is where you make sure that they're going to go out there and advocate for you and be referrals for you. And so it's such an important place to be. But again, a lot of organizations, a lot of managers, a lot of leaders out there have a hard time making that jump and actually taking that plunge that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, again, as we're concluding episode 34, the impact of Tony Hsieh, CEO, president of Zappos, he just, everything. Every time I heard him speak and, read his book and everything, how he revolutionized the mindset of just how a business should approach the customer experience and the training. It sounds funny, but when I heard about the sudden death, I felt like I lost someone in my family because what he's done, for me and the inspiration he's provided. We're so lucky to have had. Not to mention, what we lost, what he could have done for the next 30 or 40 years that would have continued to be revolutionizing. And as you pointed out, he had recently stepped down from Zappos, and his major project was revitalizing that part of Las Vegas. And I'm sure it will continue. But he was such a visionary and just did so many things so extremely well.
Yeah, and it was a theme of our conversation today, John, but truly a pioneer in customer experience, right? He tried some things, right? Some of them might have been gambles. He might have rolled the dice and hoped it worked, but man, he did some things that have really changed the way organizations deliver customer experience today.
Yeah, I have him on my Mount Rushmore of customer experience leaders. There's only 4 spots, and I did this years ago, and he got one of the 4 for everything he's done. And if you haven't read this book, Delivering Happiness, I would highly recommend it. It's a really great book, not only for the content and examples we've shared, but just his focus on bringing happiness to his employees, to customers, to the world. And that's a great crusade for someone to be on in their life.
Yeah, it really is. So, John, that's a great wrap up of this episode. Again, this is the Customer Service Revolution podcast. This was episode number 34, our tribute to really the legendary pioneer in customer experience, Tony Hsieh, and the legacy that he has left behind, which will continue to live on as organizations learn from him and use him and what he has built as an example. So it was great to talk about Tony and all the wonderful things that he has done. So thanks for your time today, John. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. It was really enjoyable going down memory lane with Tony Hsieh. And thanks to all our listeners. And we will see you on episode 35.
We love to read your reviews. Please be sure to share your comments and let us know what you're enjoying most on the podcast. And to hear more episodes, be sure to subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening and being part of the Customer Service Revolution.